are up. This is Beacon Roadshow, and I am your host, Rich Levesque. And I am honored today to welcome Self-Sabotage coach, Janna Van Train. Glad to have you, my friend.
So good to be here, Rich. Thank you for inviting me. I'm so looking forward to this conversation.
Me as well. And as always, just want to throw a reminder that you're doing the best you can today with what you have to work with. Whether it feels like it or not, you are enough and you matter. Please take extra special care of yourself today and every day. Here on Beacon Roadshow, everything is intended to come back to this message and to wrap around this message. Because ultimately, we're all doing our best to be our best and to be seen and heard, both by ourselves and by the world around us. Goal for this show is to honor that by speaking of how that works for us and how it can look. We'll share stories of how we're navigating that journey. We'll also talk about skills and tools that are available to help us along in our own journeys. And that's the thing. There's no one way for anything. We just have to find what works for each of us in our own ways and on our own terms. And like all things, treat this like a buffet table. Remember those? Take what clicks, leave the rest. And however you come about finding this little corner of the world and whatever way you use it, it's an honor you're taking the time to join us. Hey, Janna. All right, so let's talk about what exactly is a self-sabotage coach. I mean, I've got an idea in my head, but I want to see, where you take it and bounce off of that.
Right. So it started out, and I think when you and I met, I had been a health and wellness coach.
Yes.
And I still absolutely have all of those skills, education, certification, and experience to do that. But what I found as I work with people, it may not be true for everyone in the world or on the planet, but if you're in any kind of first world country, North America, Europe, and you have the means to be considering reaching out for a health and wellness coach, I don't think there's anybody that I met who didn't already know the basic foundation, which is that we need to eat good, clean food. We need to drink plenty of water. We need to get adequate sleep. We need to move our body. And we should have some form of spiritual practice, whatever that may be for the person. Could be meditation, could be religion, could be anything. So that's the foundation of what we all need to be healthy. And everyone I've worked with knows these things and is still not doing them. So what I really help people do is kind of peel back the layers of the onion of why are we not doing the things we know we need to do? You want to be healthy. It's why you reached out to me. You want to work on some area of your life. We would start with health, but sometimes it would veer off into relationships or career or whatever is really going on. And what is the underlying foundation that we want to improve, but we are not doing what we know we need to do? And so then I help peel back that and find out what's really going on. And it almost always goes back to some wound or some sabotage, or maybe something that happened to us even as far back as childhood, which once upon a time I thought was ridiculous. We're adults, we're not children anymore, but we learn foundational lessons and they direct our thinking as we go forward in life. And so sometimes we need to look at, what did I learn that kept me safe, that got me through a terrible situation? And it's survival, but it's not thriving. Like if I repeat that same thing now, I'm not going to get to where I need to be in the future. And how to graduate from that without causing any further damage. Like if I had some survival mechanism, there is no reason for me to beat myself up that I'm still doing it. I need to honor that and thank the little Janna that figured out how to survive, and then move forward in a healing way to the next step of growing and just, finding a new way to do it that's going to work to get me to the next goal. The first goal was to survive whatever happened. The next goal is to thrive and be healthy in whichever area of my life that I'm not being thriving and healthy in.
And that opens up so many different avenues. I mean, it's ultimately a big spider web, Yeah. And I think it's really, I think it's coming a lot more, commonplace knowledge now that, a lot of the foundations that we learn, we have them in our head by like age 7, I believe the number is for most people. And, while things can always be unlearned, it takes a lot more work because, it's all, jammed in there, and there's so much you have to take apart. And, and it's, and we all have these different layers, and so much of the time it's not even what we think it is. Like, we might, I imagine you've got to have people coming in, and when you start mentioning self-sabotage, you might be like, all right, well, I lost my job, or I had this, really crappy divorce, or things like that. But then you find out that the divorce triggered this thing that happened when you were like 9, and everything just kind of goes back, and it's like a movie that keeps replaying itself.
Right. And even going along the example you laid out there, it's not that the divorce triggered something when you were 9. It's that getting married to a person who had those patterns that were familiar to you when you were 9. The divorce was almost inevitable if the self-healing didn't happen prior to the marriage, right? So if I'm coming into a marriage with my childhood wounds, and someone else is coming in with their childhood wounds, and we're both coming in like, I'm broke, why don't you fix me? It's not going to happen, right? There's no way for that to be a healthy outcome unless both parties within the marriage are willing to look inward and fix what's broken inside of ourselves, right? I need to come to my relationship as healed or healing. I mean, I'm not going to be walking on water, right? And even if I do walk on water, my feet are wet. There's nothing perfect, right? But at the same time, the thing with any relationship is that I need to come into it healed, not expecting you to heal or fix me, because that's not possible. No outside human being can heal or fix my childhood wounds. And it's terribly unfair for me to put that on someone else, because no matter how much they love me, like, it's not a possibility for another human to do that. And so we kind of need to be working on our own. And that's not to say that all my wounds are all healed now, but as long as I'm aware of what they are and working on that and being my best self, then what I bring to the relationship is very different than if I'm aware of all the things that don't you do this and don't you do that, and my parents did this and my mother did that, and then now I'm just I'm bleeding all over you and you haven't cut me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
you're doing that, but you're also putting so much pressure on yourself to be this perfect, to heal whatever it is, because you might be trying to fix your marriage, but also trying to fix your relationship with your dad. And where none of that, you can't fix your dad. You can't fix your husband. You can fix yourself and hope that your husband sees that and wants to do this, wants to do the same. And then, go from there. If they do and they're willing to do the work, then that's phenomenal. And you might be, and then you can kind of, rebuild that. But if they don't, you may come to a point where you have to make some choices.
And that's ultimately what it comes down to. Yeah. Because if one person is on a path of personal growth and attempting to reparent themselves and become a fully responsible adult for their own life, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all that. And then the other person is not trying to grow and become an adult and be responsible for themselves in those ways. It could become dysfunctional where you've got one adult and one child, maybe not chronologically, maybe they're the same age, but one is trying to stand on their own 2 feet and be an adult and one isn't. And that's rarely going to have a healthy outcome. Yeah.
No, it can't.
So we just kind of work on, all the stuff inside that and it's not even necessarily so complicated. There's basic patterns that we do that are safety based. We when we're children and, we're like 3 feet tall and 40, 50 pounds, or 4 or 5 feet tall and 80 pounds. And there's an adult that's like 6 feet tall and 200 pounds. That's terrifying. You're going to say and do whatever you need to say and do. So this person doesn't yell at you, that they feed you, they let you live in the house, And we learn these patterns that might be a little dysfunctional and maybe aren't serving us in our adult life. And so how do we just honor that and then say, okay, well, in my adult life today, I don't need to act like that. I don't need to be a constant people pleaser, and I don't need to, be unhealthy, which isn't to say I'm not going to do nice things for people, but it's going to be coming from a place of generosity as opposed to a place of fear.
Right. And it's a place where, it feels right to you and you're honoring, what's a boundary to you. You're not letting what you think is your need to be generous, to be kind, allow the world to use you as a welcome mat.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, I know with myself, that's been a very hard thing to learn. And it still, it still comes up at times. I mean, it's, part of being human. But, kind of learning that when to say no, when to put the brakes on, because, people aren't necessarily going to, especially those that their wiring has taught them that what they need to do to survive is to latch onto somebody and hang on with all they got. Right. They're not going to be wired to let go. So what ends up happening, unfortunately, is you have to do the work for them for your own protection. And then, but you have to be healthy enough to do that. If you're somebody in that, codependent, narcissistic, that tango, it's, and you don't have those boundaries, that's when things just evolve into a nightmare.
Indeed they do. Yeah, for sure. And it, as with all areas of everything, what the fields I've gone into are exactly the things that I've had to look at in myself. So, before I went into coaching, or let's just go back to the health and wellness coaching. Before I did that, mm-hmm. I had gone through a period where I had been terribly unhealthy. And then through nutrition and juicing and a whole bunch of lifestyle changes, and I don't even like the word diet. It's just I quit eating crap and started eating actual food. Then I got healthy. And then I went through this period where it was almost like, newfound religion or something. I just wanted everyone to get healthy, right? And
it's natural that you have this new information. It's like, this is amazing. Everybody needs to know this. Of course you're going to want to do that.
Yeah. And then as I started working with people and come to realize there's nothing new under the sun. We all kind of know the basics, and sure, maybe somebody's concerned about this particular issue and they want to know which foods are good with that. And if, that's a basic thing I can help with. It's also a thing that a Google search will find. So it's not like this information isn't readily available. So as I work with people, I find really the situation is self-sabotage. And then as I, kind of look back at my own life, well, okay, this story of being unhealthy and getting healthy to become a health and wellness coach is cute, but how did I get unhealthy in the first place? Self-sabotage, right?
Of course.
Because that I was like eating my feelings in a dysfunctional relationship. And so it's kind of like the next evolution of what was the root cause of getting healthy? Well, I was eating unhealthy. Well, what was the root cause of that? Well, that was self-sabotage. And and just really having a lot of life experience that I can bring forward to help people, because you'll start seeing it coming out as I'm shifting my focus from the health and wellness, but there's a lot of overcoming and lessons learned that I can share with people that, there's a lot of things I've experienced that people think that they're the only one because maybe it's not being talked about openly. And I'm not afraid to talk about openly any of it. And then that will create a safe space where we can look at what damage was caused in that situation, what lessons were learned that absolutely were essential to your survival, but are now holding you back. And how can we grow from there? And I think it's a fabulous shifting of the perspective just to be able to help people.
It is. And to jump on what you were saying about how a lot of times people think that, they're alone and they'll beat themselves up for how, and, shame and embarrassment and guilt are powerful, and they keep you from realizing, once you kind of step out of there, Yeah, maybe there might be somebody with something to say, but for every one person that has some, snotty comment or, a judgment, there's easily 10 that are going to be like, yeah, thank you for saying that. Me too. I felt the same thing. I've had this exact same experience. I got there because of this. And we don't realize just, because, a lot of it too, it's kind of, we're taught that we're on our own and we've got to figure it out. And sometimes we don't know, we're in our own echo chambers. Sometimes we don't know what we have to figure out. And, that's when ego is, that's right in the ego's wheelhouse. It's going to tell you, hey, you're on your own. Nobody else is going to, they're just going to point and laugh at you. How can you be so stupid? Like all these freaking voices. I mean, and they have different names. It could be, depending on, who in your past used to kind of, get in your ear like that. And, it, feels familiar and you just kind of take that on for yourself. And then, people are just, sitting in their own pain and misery. And then, you take a step out and then you realize, holy shit, there's a lot of people feeling a lot of the same stuff. And, I obviously I go through it a different, way. It's more of, as, a writer, creating content. But as I started to put stuff out there about my own experiences, it was scary. I figured I was, my first thought was I was going to get called in the office and, basically, sent on my way. And, what ended up happening was my inbox got exploded with people being like, yeah, that's me. This is me. And, you would be, if, you kind of knew the, my lists, and you try to figure out who you think the people would be. Like, you couldn't guess it. I was like, you got your shit together. How you like, you're gonna, like, what? So yeah, you don't know what people are carrying until you kind of give them that permission to share it with you.
Right. Absolutely. And I know it's very different. Like the world that my kids are growing up in, I've got one in their mid-20s and I got a couple teenagers, and even that 10-year gap is pretty significant what they've gone through. But then when you look at what it was like for people in my generation growing up, like you talk 60s, 70s, even into the 80s, it was just normal that you do not talk about what's going on in the house outside the house. Like you don't do that. Like whatever it is, kind of like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, like what happens at home stays at home. And so there was no permission to talk about any of that stuff. If there was any kind of abuse going on, there was no permission to talk about that kind of stuff. Like today, I feel like the pendulum's almost swung the other direction with the helicopter parenting, but and maybe that's a natural reaction because there was a whole generation of kids enduring a lot of abuse that weren't allowed to talk about it. And so now
they're trying to do right what was done. They're trying to fix a right the best they can with what they know how, and it kind of went the other way.
Right, and it's gone too far because now, like, you see all the memes and videos and things like, we would leave in the morning and go ride our bikes and not come home till the street lights came on. Our parents didn't know where we were. There were no cell phones. We drank out of garden hoses, all these things, right? And look at us, we survived. And then we make fun of the kids today who, in fact, we raised to live in the society where they're not allowed to go ride their bike. They're not allowed to go be free. They're not allowed to drink out of the garden hose. And God forbid they should try to do these things. Somebody on the street's going to call child services on you. And now you've got the government trying to make sure you're a good parent because you let your child ride their bike. And so I don't know what the happy medium is, but I feel like the complete nobody knows where their children are is might be a bit much. But also, no child is allowed to go ride their bike to the store and back is also a bit much.
Right.
And how are we going to how are we going to expect these kids to have any independence, stand on their own 2 feet, and get out there and do anything if we never even let them do anything? That's on us. We
It is.
overcompensated based on our wounds, and now we're creating a whole different type of wounds. And there's a whole lot of anxiety, depression, like kids are afraid of everything because we taught them to be afraid of everything. And how do we teach them to have confidence in themselves is a different conversation that I think would be appropriate for all the generations to have. Because like you said, we're all doing the best we can with what we have. It's just we're trying to protect our children from all what happened to us and inflicting on them a level of control that might be a little unhealthy.
Absolutely. I think of Simon Sinek had talked about that, talking about how in a lot of cases, employers are taking on, kids, and, they don't know what they don't know. And in a lot of ways, there's a lot of, parenting that kind of has to go on in the workplace. And a lot of the there's employers that, complain about it. And he's, and the basic point of his message, and, it's out there on YouTube for anybody to find. And basically, look, this is what it is. This is, we chose to raise them this way, and now they don't have the tools they need. And you know what? We own it, and we're going to have to help. Now, we're going to have to help them out, and that's just the way it's going to be, basically, is what. And right. I think what you'll see going forward is you'll probably see, that pendulum kind of go back as was it Gen Z, I think they call them, like as they start to, have families of their own in the next decade or so. I think you'll see that pendulum kind of swing back because, they know that the participation trophies don't mean anything. That's why they're freaking buried under the bed the whole time. They know they're not, they may not have the tools, but these kids aren't stupid. They know.
Right. Yeah. 8th place on a team of 8 it doesn't warrant a trophy, and it devalues the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place trophies. Like, there really is a lot to be said on both ends of winning the trophy because you earned it, and also not winning the trophy because you didn't earn it, and still having a healthy self-respect afterwards, even if you just tried and didn't win. I feel like there's more self-esteem in the learning lesson of not achieving, and call it failing. Like, you failed. Like, not 90% of things is trying and falling and failing. And what was that thing with Edison? Tried 100 ways to do the light bulb. He said he never failed. He just found 100 ways it didn't work. Right.
Right.
And we need to restore the emphasis on efforting versus trophying. Like, the trophies are meaningless without effort.
And that's the thing. There's, learning how to lose in so many ways is so much more important. Like, learning how to win, I mean, it's easy. You get the accolades, you get all this stuff, you get all this, reinforcement, and, that's easy street. But learning how to lose, it's learning how to not identify yourself as a failure and letting that be like the final judgment. Like, I used to do videos back in the day, and I would talk about, failure doesn't exist. And in a way, like, and in that realm, it doesn't have to, like, nothing's ever a final judgment. So, it's an opportunity to learn, okay, this didn't work. How can I aim this? What went wrong? Was there something on the outside that I need to learn to control for? Did shit just happen? And you know what? Sometimes it's just a matter of, things go wrong, learning how to let that roll off and not take that on. There's also, okay, when do you kind of get that point where, like, okay, maybe this isn't the path for me, maybe baseball's just not my thing, but I'm really interested in, theater or, or music or something like that. You know what? maybe this is just not my thing, and maybe it's time to go explore something else. Like, there's always lessons and opportunities, and there's so many nuggets in losing that we don't take the opportunity to see.
Right. Well, and I would submit two more things. One, even if you're not winning trophies in baseball, if you enjoy it, being on the team without a trophy is perfectly fine. Just play for fun's sake if you like baseball, right?
Right.
I mean, for sure, if you have another interest, go after it, but it doesn't mean that you don't do it if it's fun, right? It can be a hobby. And the other thing, when you let off with winning is easy and losing has all the lessons, I dare submit that there is an art to winning as well, because if we let that go to our head, then that's when ego comes in. It's when the fear of losing becomes a bigger deal, and it's also when potentially arrogance or being unkind to whoever didn't win. So let's say 100 people try for something, one guy wins. Is he going to be graceful in this? Is he going to show respect for everyone who tried, or is he going to be a jerk to everyone who didn't get the trophy that he got? Right? There is definitely lessons to learn in winning as gracefully as losing gracefully. Like, they both have lessons in them. Not getting too big, not getting too low.
Excellent point, Janna. And in the aftermath of it, the assumption that that's what's just going to happen because, hey, look at me, somebody's going to catch up.
Without
go back
fail.
to that whole hare and the tortoise story and the Aesop fable.
Yeah. And now, because I won, does that mean that if I lose next time that I'm even somehow a bigger loser than if I hadn't won? Is my ego wrapped up in this trophy? Because that's a dangerous place to be. It could be more dangerous than losing it, really.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah, pedestals are dangerous. So we need to take both with a grain of salt. A win is nice, it feels good, absolutely. A loss can be unfortunate and we learn our lessons, but neither one should become our identity, because tomorrow's a different day and neither the win nor the loss is involved in the next day. It's a new day.
Right. So what I'll do is I can kind of walk back what I was saying a little bit. I think in the immediate, winning is still obviously the easy, but just as you said, there's the other elements to it that that are going to come later. What comes from that? What are the next steps? And then that's where where a lot of those lessons are going to be taught and be learned or not learned, and that's where the traps are.
Yeah, that's the kicker. That is where the traps are. Did we learn our lesson or didn't we? And the universe is so much fun with like, oh, you didn't learn the lesson? Here, let's play this game again. And we'll keep playing the same game until we learn. For sure.
The names and faces might change, but the situation, it's going to look very familiar.
Yeah. And that almost loops us right back to where we started with the whole self-sabotage, because we recreate the patterns we're comfortable with, even if they're not healthy. We pick partners and relationships that recreate that feeling of home, even if home didn't feel good, just because it's home. And so we have, that's where the work comes in, is making someplace safe feel home if childhood wasn't safe.
Yeah. And that was exactly, some content rather that I was, working on a little earlier that'll go up later, and kind of, talking about, for people when, if it's not safe to be, seen in your element, you're going to go back to what, you're going to go back to what safety is. And safety, safety for you may make absolutely no sense to me. To me, it might look flat out dangerous, because, it could involve going back into a unhealthy relationship, or back into addiction, or, going back into whatever box. But what it is, it's the devil, and it may be dangerous, but you know how to navigate it.
Yes, that is exactly it. We get comfortable in these patterns, no matter how unhealthy they are. And then even if we take 2 steps out and go into new waters, it's so uncomfortable in the new waters that we jump right back in the pool. And so finding a way to get out of the water and feel safe out of the water, because maybe there's a new tribe over here that'll treat you right. It just having the courage to get out of the water and stay out of the water long enough to find your new tribe is the deal. Because ultimately we're social beings. We need fellowship and friends. And if all of our friends are in a unhealthy vibe, then we're going to be doing unhealthy things. But if we can find our way, walk the lonely road in between to the next tribe, and they're all doing healthy things, we're going to do healthy things. Nobody's going to go into the healthy tribe and sit down and start eating junk food. They're going to be like, they would feel awkward. They would be afraid they stand out. All those same fears that kept them being unhealthy in the unhealthy tribe would actually cause them to be healthy in a healthy tribe. Because we really do want to fit in. We just need to find the tribe that we want to fit in and make sure that we're vibrating at the same level. So that whole thing where, our parents used to say, it matters who you hang out with. And we thought, that's ridiculous. Johnny's great. Janie's fun. No, it matters, because what Johnny's going to do, you're going to do. And what Janie's going to do, I'm going to do. And it is important to pick our friends wisely. Someone who's uplifting, someone who, if I come tell them something, well, first of all, it shouldn't be talked about without me saying it's okay to be talked about. But then also, if it is talked about with anyone else, is it in the context of, well, she's really struggling with this, how can we help? Or is it in the context of, can you believe she said this? And like a whole bunch of gossip and slander and right? So like, what kind of friends do we surround ourselves with? And are they uplifting? And are they moving us forward? And if they're not, do we have the courage to break that tie, no matter how familiar and comfy it is?
Yeah. And that's, it's one of those things that, and speaking from my own experience, it's easy to talk about, but it's really hard in the process. And you know what? Straight up, it can be very lonely, especially if, whatever that next tribe that you find, if A, you haven't found them yet, or B, even, and I'm not saying this to, I mean, absolutely no disrespect, because I've got, these online tribes of people that I've, that have become family in a lot of ways, but there's a difference between, being online and being physically present. That's just
absolutely.
That's just how it is. And
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's huge.
So, and, it's very, and, if you're in a place where, a lot of, where there may not be a lot of people. I mean, myself, I grew up in a small town. So I kind of, everybody knows everybody. And, a lot of people kind of, they run in the same circles and kind of do the same things. And, if somebody decides, hey, this isn't my jam. I'm more of a, city thing and what the city has to offer and all this other stuff that you're not going to find. You're going to end up having to, kind of make that lonely, trek out to the city. You're going to accept that it's time to move on. And you know what? It stinks because, in the process, if the town's all then, it means going and, having to walk away and go find something new and scary and uncertain. You don't know how it's going to play out. Are they going to like you? Are they going to fit in? Are you going to be like that new weird kid that doesn't, quite click? And you're going to be the one that's kind of sitting over in the corner at recess, all these things from when we were kids, they still, we still feel them as adults.
Absolutely. And there's pros and cons with both scenarios that you mentioned, right? So in the small town where everybody knows everybody, they also remember when you were 7 years old and something happened and nobody lets you forget it 30, 40 years later. So like, it's almost impossible. Here we are trying to do personal development or whatever it is. and Johnny down the street won't let you forget when you were 7 and fell off your bike. Like, I mean, you haven't fell off your bike in 15 years, but he won't let when you were 7 go.
Nope.
And it can be hard. And then on the flip side of that, you realize, okay, well, you know, there's only 500 people in this town or 1,000 people in this town, and they all knew when I was 7, and Johnny won't shut up. So I'm gonna move to this other town, and now I'm the new kid. And now that's like, how do I fit in? Do I say something? Do I not say something? And there's definite pros and cons with all of that. And it's just like, are we essentially going to do what we need to do on the inside? What personal growth we need to do on the inside to be okay in either town? Because it doesn't matter what Johnny's doing, and it doesn't matter really what the new town's doing. It matters what I'm doing. Because I could be happy in either town, and I could be depressed in either town.
Yeah, because wherever town you go to, you know, you're still carrying your crap.
Or not.
Or exactly. And, you know, that's, you know, really an important piece, because if you kind of got your stuff together, it doesn't matter. You can kind of, you know, you can connect with, you know, what's going on in small town. You can connect with, you know, big city. You can kind of see why. You can kind of, you know, talk from like that, you know, the eagle eye view. You know, it's a mutual friend of ours actually used in a post one, and I fell in love with that phrase because I think it's really, you know, I feel like that's kind of a view that I have with a lot of people. Like, I can, you know, whether I can completely disagree with their take and their belief in something, but I can also be like, all right, this is where they're coming from. I can pick up this from their experience, and this because of A, B, and C that they knew. For them, this belief feels absolutely right, you know, and then I can kind of see over here. All right, you know, they're, you know, hard in their belief, but because their experience sent them X, Y, and Z, it becomes really easy for them to see it an entirely different way. And what's really funny is so many times when you have people that are on such polar extremes, they have really so much of their mindset is so similar. It's just their life experiences take them entirely different directions, and they think that they have nothing in common until, you know, you kind of put them together and you talk about anything but, and all of a sudden you realize that that's not the case.
Right. And they're both going back to that same safety-based, like, our brain is literally designed for survival and safety. So even on the same topic, they take the same set of facts and come to a different conclusion. It's just based on their perception of what's going to be the safest and best. Like, there's got to be 3 or 4 different hot topics right now that I'm not even going to mention, but they're volatile and people get excited and they get very aggressive. And if we were to take people on either side, they believe they're doing the right thing passionately, vehemently, and fervently. Yes. And they don't know why the other side is being like that, because they're just so sure that they're right. And both sides are that way. Like, they think they're good people. They want the best. 2 or 3 of the issues have to do with health. Some of them have to do with children. I would guarantee you the moms on both sides love their children. It's just the moms on this side think this is how you keep your children safe and healthy. And the moms on this side are like, well, this is my experience, and this is how I want to keep my children safe and healthy. And they're so busy screaming at each other that they're not listening to each other. And they, of course, they want their children safe and healthy, but they're not listening to each other. And I have actually had a complete 180 in my views on a few of the hot topics recently. Well, my 180 wasn't recently, but the topics are hot now. And it's kind of interesting because I can see where 3 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I would have actually been on the other side of the hot topic that's going on today. And so I totally understand where they're coming from. And I also see it the opposite, because I, over a period of time, took the time to get curious and to investigate, like, what if I am wrong? What if I'm not right about everything happening in the world today? What if the world according to Janna isn't 100% accurate because it's all from my filter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the tools that I kind of created for myself, I haven't seen or heard anyone else talk about this yet, but I noticed one day when I was driving, and like I think a lot of people do this, like you're having a disagreement or a hot situation with somebody, and just driving down the road, in my mind, I'm having the conversation with somebody or building a case against them or whatever it is. And I become the world's greatest prosecution attorney in the world. I could nail them to the wall with all the reasons they're wrong, what they did is wrong, how they did it is wrong, why they did it is wrong, what everything. They're just wrong. And then in the middle of all this, my reactions to whatever it is they did, on the flip side, I am also the world's greatest defense attorney, because what I did is to be expected when they do this, and they hurt me this way, and of course I did that, and I'm protecting my family and all the good things about me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I kind of did, or try to do whenever possible, when I catch myself, if I catch myself building a case, what I try to do is flip the tables. So can I be a defense attorney for that person? Why are they doing that? What did I do that they feel triggered? What happened that they felt that was the right thing to do? And then, I mean, I don't want to say prosecuting myself, but an accountability inventory, perhaps. Like, what did I do in here that led to these escalations? So I'm defending myself in terms of, well, I'm protecting my family, or I'm protecting myself, my home, my income, my job, my whatever, all about me, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what did I do that potentially jeopardized all those things? And what do they do that they feel they're defending those things for themselves? Like, and if I can switch the roles, it's usually a little easier. And it's hard. It took me, I don't know, decades of building cases against people to be able to recognize that I was building cases. Like, it was just like a hobby in my head. Like, if there's a stressful thing, here's all the reasons why I think I'm right and you're wrong. It took a conscious, like, aha moment to realize I was doing that. And then it took several months later to realize that I could flip the tables and try to see it from their perspective. And sometimes I still come out on the conclusion that, nah, I think what I'm doing is, maybe I could do it differently. Maybe I could be more gentle. Maybe I could, find a different way to do it. But at the end of the day, there are certain principles that I'll stand by. If I'm wrong, one of those principles is to admit it and just go and apologize, make amends, try to fix that. But if I think I'm right, maybe it's to approach the person in a different way of understanding where they're coming from. And also, this is where I'm coming from. And I kind of still got to hold the line on my values. And even that can take away the hostility of a situation, even if we agree to disagree. But it's hard. It goes back to, I mean, like, somebody taught me my first or second real job out of college. They actually paid for everyone to go to the Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People thing, like back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, I'm not sure if it's the first one, but there's only 7. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. If I had gotten that then, I could have saved myself decades of building cases. Like, right? Because ultimately what I just said boils down to that, which was its own little aha moment right here while we're talking. But that's what it comes down to. Like, if the world were to pause and try to understand what the other people that are so heated, like, why are they so heated on their side while I'm so heated on my side, we could maybe have a conversation that maybe it wouldn't be 100% what either of us wants, but if we got 80% each, it'd be a lot better than the 0% we're getting now.
Yeah. And exactly, it's what it is. It seems like there's this a combination of, people just desperately trying to be heard.
Yes.
And, and as the frustration mounts, I think, that the amygdala kind of takes over and it kind of turns into fight or flight. And once you get to that point, there's just no more, there's no more frontal processing here. There's none of that. You're just, all of a sudden you're like, the amygdala takes it over, like, like the whole, Daniel Goleman,
right.
Hijacking thing. And all of a sudden you're just like, bear. All you see is bear, fight, bear, get away from Bear. And, at that point, it's, there's no saving the conversation. I started getting into a habit sometime back, and I'm not perfect at it, but I've really started to learn when I kind of start, when it starts going that way, I just ask them. I started asking people, like, I'm not going to take, I promise I'm not going to take it to argue. This is for my own understanding. How did you get here? What, why do you see it this way? Just kind of tell me a little bit more about what you're, that's a really good test to know if you're dealing with a troll or somebody that actually has, beliefs and passions, because if it's the latter, they'll tell you. And,
right.
And they know that they can, and, when they, they'll tell you, and, there'll be times where it's like, and I'll just kind of take it on myself. Like, all right, I'm not gonna, and not take apart their beliefs, but I'll just be like, okay, all right, I can see that. I kind of get where you're coming from. This is what my experience has shown me. And, I see this, I see that. This is kind of what I saw, but I need to look at what this thing you're showing me over here, because I don't think I've ever looked at it that way before. I think I need to go do some work on that. And and I think so much gets solved with everybody being heard. And I think that's where you start getting the little loophole, the little opening where you can actually, find maybe not necessarily find common ground, but at least start finding understanding and then kind of building from there.
Right. And I think everyone watching this is going to be in agreement that they want to be heard. And the struggle we come up with, or the struggle that I had in the beginning, and still some days, but I feel like it's gotten better, is being willing to be the first listener. Like, are you willing to offer the other person the grace to speak first and to be heard first and to be validated first, so that they get to the place where they feel heard and then they can hear you because you respected them enough to, like, who's willing to listen first? And then that is where I think a lot of progress could be made too.
Yes, big time.
Yeah.
Looking at the clock, and let's kind of into these really serious, really important conversations, and then completely just take a side turn and go into something a little later.
Sure, absolutely.
But what I'm going to have is I'm going to throw a few questions at you. It's similar to what James Lipton or Lewis Howes would do at the end of their interviews.
Okay.
Just first thing that comes to mind, if you could jump into any sort of a time machine and experience one event in person, what would it be?
I should have really pondered this more, because I've seen you ask other people that question. I was hoping for a new one because I don't have a good answer. But I think two that jump into mind right off the top would be either marching with Martin Luther King Jr., because right now I see a lot of people posting it where he's marching and saying, this is how you should do it and be peaceful. But then they don't show the part half hour later where he got, beaten up by the police and arrested and taken to jail. So, like, just being a part of that time in history to understand better what's happening. And then also the other one's kind of scary too. They're both kind of scary. I don't know what's up with me and scary, but the time frame around the Boston Tea Party and declaring our country as independent from people who were trying to control and oppress us.
You know what? Those are both fascinating for reasons that are not as different as you would think. Because I think, there's elements of what's going on now where I think people would think they would be in one, camp, and I say this without judgment, without,
Sure.
alienating, but I think there's people that would think are going to be in a certain camp, and I think would be very surprised if they were sucked back in time to
Yeah.
realize where they really were.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so easy for us to Monday morning quarterback all the people in history. We do it. We do it with people in Germany with the rise of Hitler. We do it with all kinds of situations where, like, how did those people say or think or do this thing? And truth be told, it's a little arrogant of us here in 2020 to think that when it comes 2050, they're not going to be looking back at us and being like, how could they have said, done, or thought this, right? Like, we are not at the end of the road as far as any form of evolving or growth or even science. Like, everybody's, the science is settled. Well, maybe in 30 years it isn't. Like, the science was settled every time somebody said something, including that the sun is going around the earth instead of the earth around the sun. Like, people could die for saying it the other way, and they were passionate. They were passionately wrong. And so we have to always, even when we're sure we're right, maybe we could allow for a little questioning of our rightness.
I would agree. I think, we kind of we hold on to dear life for what we know. And even if we're presented with information that, clearly demonstrates that there might be another way, our natural instinct is to put blinders on it and be like, oh, hell no, we're not looking at that.
Yeah.
Next question. Yeah. What's the one thing that if you go without it in a day, it totally wrecks it, sends it right off track?
Downtime. If I'm constantly busy, it's a sign that I'm probably being unhealthy and not dealing with something. And it doesn't even matter if it's just 5 or 10 minutes. Like, if I don't have a moment to breathe from when I get up to when I go to bed, if I don't build in a few minutes to decompress or meditate or even just whatever, call a friend and chat, just some form of downtime, it's probably not good.
That's an important one. I'm going to ask you this anyway. Even kind of maybe it was, in a different time, or maybe it brings back a certain memory for you. Is there still any sort of a drive-through that you pass by and you're still kind of like, don't turn.
Not anymore. I think the last one I let go of was In-N-Out.
Okay.
Or maybe Chick-fil-A, because I felt like their chicken wasn't maybe as terrible as like their chicken might have been better than McDonald's. McDonald's was the first one I ditched. But it was so funny because it wasn't overnight, my switch from being unhealthy to healthy. And right. So there was a time that the McDonald's drive-thru was practically a daily. And when I was finally walking away from all that, I would stop ordering the food and get like fries and a Coke, as if fries or a Coke is okay. Neither one of these is okay, right? But it just was a process. It was a letting go one, and it wasn't even letting go one thing at a time, although I did. It was really just adding in healthy things, because once I gave my body healthy things, then I stopped wanting the unhealthy things. And then, so that's a whole different thing. Yeah.
Hey, sitcom family from any era that you would want to adopt you?
Brady Bunch.
Good call. I think I think I just want to hang out with Alice. Alice just
yes.
Alice is so underrated.
She was a big part of why I picked the Brady Bunch. Mike and Carol are great, but Alice was really taking care of the kids, and she was great.
Yes.
I would feel safe in that home.
What brings joy?
Primarily my kids, but then also helping people get that aha moment with coaching. Like, I had a corporate job for over a quarter of a century, and that was good. It paid the bills, but it never brought the kind of joy that when someone gets it and their eyes light up and they make change. That is so exciting. I really love that.
Amen. What brings peace?
The same two things, I think, really. My kids being safe and okay. And you know what? No, for peace, it's integrity. Knowing when my head hits the pillow at night that I haven't done anything, that I didn't do anything inappropriate or dishonest or whatever. Like I sleep knowing that that I'm clean on the inside.
I
Like,
love that.
not shower wise, but like my integrity brings me peace.
I love that. What brings hope?
Conversations like this, right? If we can get people to have an exchange of ideas and maybe to be the first one to listen instead of demanding to be the first one to be heard. Like, I feel like even though there's a whole bunch of chaos going on, there is always hope if people are willing to work together and sit down and talk with each other.
Absolutely. And what's the one thing you want people to think when they see or think of Janna Van Train?
Just basically a good person helping people. Just doing the best I can.
Amen. Intentionalwellness.org. Connect with Janna. My site's beaconroad.net. You'll find my blog. You find wellness resources. Store if you want to get cool T-shirts like this. Totally accidentally self-promoting.
You should.
And we're both on the usual social media suspects. Come find us. Come reach out. And however you got this, whether it's live on YouTube, on podcast, we, as much as we talk about money and we talk about stuff, the most valuable commodity that any of us has is time. We can always replace stuff. We can always replace money. Our time is limited. And for those who spent, an hour of that with us, it's very much appreciated. Janna, thank you very much for your time. You take care of yourself, okay?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Rich. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Take care. Until next time, be safe and be well.
Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.